friends, and welcome back. Glad to join you in the Mindful Classroom. Today, we're going to wrap up Ben Franklin's The 13 Necessary Virtues. So we've done 4 and 4, which for today leaves the last 5. And they are justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility. And what I've been doing, if you have not tuned into the previous 2 episodes, is as I look at each of these virtues, it's an examination of, do they still fit into our world today? Are they still of significance? Are they still a virtue we want to hold to ourselves? Because as a recap, this was something that Benjamin Franklin kept in a journal, and every day he would examine these 13 virtues, and I'll recap them all at the end, but he would examine these 13 virtues and explore, or how was he living up to these values of his life, these ways to try to live a good life. So that'll bring up the question today of, are we doing the same thing? And we will be societally. You can apply it to yourself if you're listening. I've been applying it to myself. I've tried to look at ones where I think I do a pretty good job, and there's others that I will be the first to admit I need a ton of work. This is really an area that I need to put a focus on and concentrate on and judge myself a little harsher in how I'm doing. So if we pick up with, I guess we start with moderation today. I think I was a little off before if I said justice. I did justice in the last one. Moderation goes back to Aristotle, the golden mean. You know, he wrote moderation, avoid extremes, forbear resenting injuries so much as you think they deserve. And I guess this idea is, in life, can we hold a center ground? Can we keep things in perspective and avoid those extremes of what we do? And it could be extremes of eating, gluttony. It could be extremes of drinking and impairing our judgment. It could be extremes of beliefs too. And when I look at it that way, as far as moderation, it truly seems to be an area where we are struggling, because as a whole, the United States right now has completely divided itself to the point of, I can't even look at things to understand why somebody would have another point of view. You know, I can't even look at something that's taking place and say, yeah, maybe they have a reason to feel that way. Maybe they're treating it the wrong way, or maybe they're coming from the wrong direction. But perhaps there really is a reason they feel that way. And instead, now I look at it as, if you see things from this side, everything you think is wrong. And if you see things from this side, everything you think is wrong. So I think moderation is definitely something that we can challenge ourselves toward, in just being a controlled person, holding on to our own center point and our own center compass, and not being overwhelmed by everything that's taking place around us. And I like the forbear resenting injury so much as you think they deserve. And this could be a moderation too. Could be a moderation in holding people accountable for the things they do, that our judgment shouldn't be any more extreme than what they've done and what's led them to do that. Cleanliness, that's a great one. Tolerate no uncleanliness in body, clothes, or habitation. We should live a neat life. Keep things clean. And that doesn't have to necessarily, although it comes up in other areas, I look at cleanliness as not just my physical appearance, not just the idea of showering and wearing clean clothes, but also in where I am, having a clean mind, and really not be, and that's going to come up in some of the others, not being tempted and sullied by all the things around us. I also look at cleanliness as looking at the language we use depending on where we are. So when I say that, I mean, obviously, most people, given certain circumstances, will use language that's a little less polite or a little less acceptable than others. And it depends on where we are, who we're around, what's taking place. But one of the things that really bothers me, and I've spoken up about it when I'm working, is when I'm behind the bar at the Washington Inn, and we have a kind of a family area, like a family feel, and it's a place people go for a romantic dinner, and to hear a table where somebody is just dropping F-bombs and speaking in a voice that really doesn't fit that environment, that to me that impacts your presentation of cleanliness and who you are and how you fit in. And it's something that we need to learn to taper in our lives, of how we speak where we are. I always told people, between being in the classroom and working behind the bar in that restaurant, I have to understand my language. I just can't. There's things I shouldn't ever say because it's inappropriate to say it. And if I can learn to control that, and we all can learn to control that. We all can learn to present ourselves in a more cleanly, proper manner. And the same goes for, I always looked at when I approached the classroom, maintaining a certain cleanliness and formality of dress. I chose to wear a tie, a bow tie, a clean pressed shirt, that I really wanted to present to the students with whom I was sharing the classroom, that there's an appropriateness in how we dress and being professional and being cleansed. Tranquility. Do not be disturbed at trifles or at accidents common or unavoidable. It's funny, I don't know that I would have labeled this one Tranquility. When I first read Tranquility, my first thought was, oh, this is going to apply to removing ourselves from the busyness of society and the noise of society to have a time to be with ourselves. But I do like the idea of not being disturbed at trifles, or at accidents that happen that no one's the cause of. This reminds me of the story of the monk. There was a monk that, more than anything, wanted to perfect his meditation and find peace in that meditation. So he locked himself in his room. But when he was in his room, he still found out there was too much noise in the hallway. There were too many things disturbing him. So then he went down into the basement, figuring the basement would be the most quiet place. But he could still hear the steps, even though they tried to walk quietly. He could still hear the stepping on there. So he had this idea that he was going to take a canoe and he was going to row out into the center of a lake. So he rowed to the center of a lake. And as he was moored in the boat there and entered into his most meditative state, suddenly he felt his boat get bumped by another boat. And despite this mindful meditation that he was going through, he opened his eyes in just a rage that, how can I be out in the middle of a lake and here someone still disturbs me? And he was ready to scream at that person, when he found out it was an empty boat that had just been dislodged and had drifted out and hit him. And at that point, there was nobody to accept his anger. So the foolishness of it really arose. And he understood that sometimes these things happen. And that's that idea of tranquility. When the person in front of you is going slow and you're frustrated because you're running late, when you can calm the mind and have a tranquil mind, you can realize the fault is really our own, that we're running late. We put ourselves in this situation. And perhaps the person in front of us who's driving slow is driving for only the first or second time after a horrific accident, and they're nervous being in the car and they're nervous driving. So they're being very cautious. And that tranquility of mind lets us look at things in other ways and see that there could be other things interfering. So I'm going to put a check on that one. I think that one is huge, because I think that if we can maintain that tranquility of mind, many of these others could link in. Chastity. Rarely use venery, but for health or offspring, never to dullness, weakness, or the injury of your own or another's peace or reputation. And chastity is just what you think it would be. Venery is a word we don't see much anymore, but it's sexual activity. And this idea is, I think, so relevant in today's world, a world that is inundated with the sexualization of people and pornography, and it's really easy for it to draw us in to a point that we harm ourselves, we harm the relationships that we're in, because if we view this in a false sense on a computer or whatever we're doing for a view of pornography, it's going to impact the relationships we have. And it may not intentionally hurt somebody else, but there's two ways that it can. One, that person who is putting this information or putting this out there, are they doing it by choice, or is it something that they're being forced into? But also in the way we look at the relationships we have and what we expect from them, because we've been caught up in this false sense of sexuality and where it should be, and sexuality without connection and without love and without that exchange that takes place between two people in person, as well as the idea of hurting another person's peace or reputation. I think when I look at chastity, the question comes up that, is this an action, or is this something that I would be comfortable doing in front of the people who know me and admitting to the people who know me? Or is it something that I do in hiding? And if it's something I do in hiding, then pretty well, it's probably not something we want to be doing. So I think chastity works. And finally, number 13, humility. Imitate Jesus or Socrates. And I think we could make that list go on now. I mean, obviously, there were two people who, when Ben Franklin was putting this together, that played a very, very significant role. But now we could look at countless different leaders, imitate the Dalai Lama, imitate the Buddha, imitate Mother Teresa, imitate Thomas Merton, imitate Abraham. I mean, I could go on. And I know that in some ways, maybe my references are limited and you have plenty of other references you can say. But I think it boils down to a simple thing: is look at the goodness in people, and no matter what we do in life, try to do it with humility and respect. I've been so impressed listening to some of the athletes in the Olympics and the humility with which they carry themselves. And it's so impressive to see that while they excel in what they do and they're the greatest in their field, they still have a sense of humility in paying tribute to other people, whether that is paying tribute to God or paying tribute to their coach or their parents, those who supported them. But the part of humility is knowing that you didn't get here by yourself, no matter what happened. So I'll always hold in my mind, and I spoke about this, that when I was the county teacher of the year, I was standing on the shoulder of giants. I was standing on the shoulder of so many people who lifted me to have that opportunity. And there were so many other people that if the right moment happened, they would have had that opportunity. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the achievement, but I don't fool myself in thinking that I'm the only one who can accomplish something like that, or that I could accomplish something like that alone. The support I have from family and from friends and from mentors, it's an important thing. So when I put this up, I'll try to end it with this list so that you can look at it and you can see it on your own. Temperance, because it's been a 3-part series. So we have temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility. We can take this as a jumping off point. These are Benjamin Franklin's 13 necessary virtues. Maybe you can think of some necessary virtues. If at the end of every day or every week or every month, whatever is the right timing for you, if you step back and reflect on your actions, what did I do that I'm proud of and that was good and that I can carry with me? And then what are some things that I'd like to work on that need improvement, that I need to revisit and say, this is an area I really want to do better in my life. They don't have to be these 13. It could be something else that I didn't mention. Maybe it's 5 or 10 of these 13. But I think having that North Star, having that idea to consistently guide us for improvement. So it's not a one-time thing. It's not like this month I'm going to look at these 5 virtues and next month I'm going to look at these 5 virtues, because then we get really confused at where we are and are we continuing to grow? Are we continuing to improve? If every day, week, or month I reflect, and in that reflection, I do a critical reflection where I really look at the things that I did that represent these virtues and the things that I did that really take me away from these virtues. And in doing that, how do I become a better person? I develop a purpose. I contribute to the people around me. I help those around me. I help those in need. I help not me necessarily just be better, but the world around me be better. And it ties back to a quote of, if you want to improve the world, improve yourself. Because if each one of us improves ourselves, we live in a much better world. So that's where we go today. I think it's definitely something that sparks some discussion, not just of what 13 necessary virtues are fit us, but more importantly, the idea of how important self-reflection is, how important it is to look back. And you can do that through a journal. You can do that just by sitting down and taking time to think and look at where you were at the end of June, and then look at where you were at the end of July, and know that I'm going to look at where I am in the end of August and in the end of September. And if I can just keep moving in that direction, the idea of I'm turning a huge ship. And if every month I can make it 1% better, just think about where that growth is going to compound and take me as a better person. And maybe some of these virtues also tie into the habits we have, the way that we live. That think about who you want to be. When you look in the mirror, who do you want to see? And when other people look at you, who do you want them to see? And then you have to see that person, and then you can backward plan and ask yourself, okay, what would the person I want to see in the mirror do in this situation? What would the person that I want to see in the mirror do to help other people? And that can be a question that guides you with every action you take, that you can simply look at, is this leading me to be the person I want to be? So I thank you. I hope you all have an amazing day. And I'll end on the same thing. Before you walk away, once you hit stop, sit down and jot down or think about 3 things that have happened to you over the course of the last 24 hours for which you are grateful. Thanks. Have a beautiful day, everybody, and try to keep making yourself a better person.